Welcome back to OCO Social Impact Podcast, where we are here to equip today's social impact leaders one day at a time. In today's video, we're going to talk about different strategies to help your employees upskill and reskill. And this topic was stemmed from a recent video that I did that's titled Cost-Effective Strategies to Prevent Burnout Within Yourself and Your Employees. And one of the strategies in that episode that I talked about was helping your employees to engage in reskilling, actually, where they are able to further develop the current skill sets that they have, or engage in understanding and studying new skill sets altogether. So in today's video, we're going to take that video a little step further by talking a little bit more about strategies around how employers can help their employees engage in the reskilling and or upskilling processes. So if you've been following this channel or this podcast for a while, you know that I talk a lot about different topics related to organizational capacity for my mid to small size nonprofit leaders and social entrepreneurs that are interested in different startups related to social impact work. And I talked about in a recent video about how the World Economic Forum and other major companies such as McKinsey and Company stated that employers across all sectors will need to reskill their employees by 2030. Well, it is currently 2024, so we have about 6 years, according to these studies, to really engage in reskilling and upskilling for some employers so that we can catch up with AI, machine learning, all the novel technologies that are coming out in the workforce at a rapid pace. And this is not exempt for the nonprofit sector. If anything, the nonprofit sector tends to be behind the learning curve altogether in funding, typically in organizational capacity and marketing and communications and so forth. And now we are learning that there is a high turnover rate for our nonprofit leaders because a lot of the employers are having issues with their employees leaving. I shared some data that showed that major areas where nonprofits are struggling are funding and organizational capacity. And while our executive directors are focusing on how to retain our employers, our administrators and key CEOs and people within executive offices are figuring out how to diversify sources of income for the nonprofit. So we see that there is a lot of different factors that are going on that are leading to people leaving the social sector altogether. And we don't want that. So we're going to jump in by talking about some strategies related to reskilling and upskilling. But before we jump into these short strategies, I want to talk about the difference between reskilling and upskilling. So reskilling is being able to develop skills for a new role or new responsibilities. So if you take Susan is a development director who is looking to pivot into a director role for a specific program or project. When she is in development, she is focusing on fundraising and engaging in bringing in revenue. But now that she is wanting to pivot to a senior role leading an entire program, which will have staff running those elements of that program, she will have to reskill in certain areas so that she is better suited to run that specific, role as a director of programming, or so to speak. Then you have upskilling. Upskilling is the development of skills within an area of scope for the purposes of professional advancement. So let's take Brian. Brian is an entry-level program manager who is wanting to climb up the ranks to now become an assistant director. So Brian is wanting to engage in some upskilling so that he can have the qualifications necessary to apply for that assistant director role within his office. So I wanted to briefly give the difference between reskilling and upskilling so that you as employers or you as a nonprofit or social impact employee can understand the difference between the two and what makes sense for your situation. So the first strategy that I'm going to share with you guys today is you need to administer a baseline skills assessment. So whether you are the employer or you are the employee, your staff or your team that is looking to reskill or upskill to engage in better workflow for the nonprofit needs to understand where you are. As employers, it's important to know even before you administer these baseline assessments of where are the gaps within your organization. And I would highly encourage you to have a meeting or a series of meetings with your board of directors, with your key administrators or your executive team to really understand operationally where are the gaps within our organization and what staff do we have here now that we can help to enhance the flow of our services by reskilling and or upskilling as necessary. And once you have that clear picture, now you can administer a baseline assessment. You can create your own based on the unique needs of your organization, or you can maybe outsource and find a consultant or a third party that can bring in some resources and tools for your organization. That way the employees are able to take this assessment, we can assess where they are, and now you have a clearer picture of what areas of gap are within the organization as well as within your employees. I also would say that you need to include the employees in this process. You don't necessarily have to include them in understanding the operational gaps within your organization, but see what they want to learn, see what areas they are looking to grow. Every organization across all sectors should allow for there to be professional development and growth within the role. And so you want to review all the different job descriptions and things like that, and maybe have a series of interviews and maybe some focus groups within your employees to figure out what it is that they are actually wanting to engage in themselves and what resources they think they'll need to engage in reskilling and or upskilling depending on the needs of the employee. The second point that I want to talk about that you guys should consider as a strategy is conduct a learning needs analysis. So I've already hinted at this a little bit, but you can take this a little step further by taking the time to engage with your employees to figure out what areas of growth that they would like to see within their current position. So I would start by engaging and looking at the job descriptions, understanding what the scope of work is that your employees are actually engaging in, then bring in their feedback, their perspective, let them help you by explaining what areas of gap that they see within the operations, especially if you guys are a smaller nonprofit, and then you can now build your analysis from there. And so you can create a roadmap, so to speak, where you as the administrator and your executive team can sit down with maybe a third party or within yourselves to say, okay, now that we have talked to all of our staff members and we now understand what the needs of the organization are for our employees, now we know what type of resources or individuals we may need to bring in to help with those reskilling and upskilling services. And I want to make a point that this process will take time. This may take a series of months, sometimes a series of years, depending on the needs of an organization. organization, the size and the scope of the work that you do. So be patient with this process, and allow for there to be moments where you have to pivot and change in ways that you engage in this analysis, because you want to make sure that you do it as efficiently and as effectively as possible, so that now you're able to bring in the proper resources to help your employees. The third point that we're briefly going to talk about is determining the course of action. So now that you have did an analysis on the organizational's health, you now know the areas that your employees want to grow in, as well as the areas of gap within their current job descriptions. You've sat down and talked to key leadership. Now let's figure out what exactly do we need to do. Do you need to bring in different companies that help with upskilling work or reskilling? There are so many companies, especially if your organization is wanting to engage in more technology skill sets and different things related to artificial intelligence and machine learning, where your employers can engage in online courses for a fee and receive different certifications and skill badges and different things like that at their own pace. Or you can actually bring in industry experts, and they can do different trainings and workshops and webinars with your staff members, where they're also able to receive certain credits related to certain certifications and different things like that. So now it is time to think about how much money needs to be allocated to these services. And I would also implore you to think about what level of responsibility will be on your employees. You are professionally responsible for your employees as the executive director or any form of key leadership, but you can put some of the responsibility on them. If you have a development team, typically there is a CFRE requirement, and so if there are some individuals that have the CFRE requirement on their resume and different things like that, but they are wanting to further their experience to grow within the team, then maybe they would be better suited to engage in some more professional development opportunities. Or maybe you can send them off to a conference where they can learn more about fundraising for nonprofits and marketing and asking and donating and different things related to that. Or if you have someone that is not certified in fundraising and development, then maybe you should lead them to get that certification. And there are a lot of requirements for different certifications, but the point is there should be a level of responsibility on the employee to ensure that they are taking responsibility for their upskilling or reskilling process. And then the final point that we're going to talk about today is infuse this entire process with mentorship and coaching. Mentorship is super important, and more recently in the workforce is being highlighted because people realize that work is not black and white. There are so many areas of need for your employees and even for you as key leaders. And if you have mentors and you have people that you are able to get professional wisdom from, you should be able to do the same thing for your employees. And so I would encourage you guys to, allow for there to be different mentor moments, and that can be internal, where, some of your more senior leaders can, engage with different employees on different teams. And you can do maybe different lunch and learns where, employees are able to ask questions with key leadership that they may not ever be able to ask just because of the organizational structure, or, bringing in different experts in different industries that are able to, allow for employees to actually engage and ask those questions that they've been wanting to ask but just haven't had the time to do so. I would also encourage you as employers to infuse this process with a level of coaching. So mentorship and coaching are interchangeable, but they can be different depending on the situation and circumstances. You can look at a mentor depending on your needs of mentorship as someone who guides you and gives you wisdom and sometimes gives you expertise in certain industries. But a coach is someone who is there as a guide that is more a little more hands off, if you will, than a mentor may be. And again, it depends on your personal needs as you're looking for a mentor and or a coach. But coaching is keeping people on track in a professional manner while leading them to the answer instead of giving them the answer. Whereas a mentor may be able to guide you, but they're also giving you certain answers and different things that you may need. So allow for your employees to engage in coaching sessions if you want to bring in a third party for a period of time, or provide different forms of a benefit where you may partner with a company that provides professional coaching services for your employers, where they're able to ask those offline questions that they may need a little more guidance in. Allow that to be an option for them throughout this process. Or you can just highly encourage your employees to do this, to go and find them a professional coach that they can work with to help them in their professional journey as they are upskilling and reskilling. This process may be a wake-up call for a lot of your employees, especially if they have been in their role for 5+ years. Imagine you have gotten everything down to the T within your position, and you are now required to pivot, to change, and that looks different for a lot of different generations: Gen X, the millennials, Gen Z, baby boomers, and so on. So you want to make sure that you're keeping in mind the generational differences as your employees are on this journey of upskilling and reskilling. So to recap this video, we talked about 4 key strategies that you guys should employ as you are leading your employees to engage in reskilling and or upskilling. The first strategy is you need to administer a baseline skills assessment. This is for the organization as well as for your employees, and make sure that they are a part of the process. The second strategy is conduct a learning needs analysis. This is strictly focusing on the needs of your employees. The third point is determine the course of action. Develop an internal roadmap that guides you as leaders and also guides the organization on different phases of reskilling and upskilling, the services that will be provided, and how much level of responsibility is on the employees. And then the final point, infuse this process with a level of mentorship and coaching. Allow there to be moments where key industry leaders are able to come in and bring a level of expertise, but also encourage your employees to engage in finding a coach that can work with them one-on-one to help them throughout this process as they are pivoting in their job career or they are advancing in their current position. So I hope and pray that this video was helpful for you guys. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, depending on the platform that you are engaging with this content on. And I look forward to continuing to grow with you guys. But until next time, try to make the world a better place today.